continue with the 17th chapter of Last Son of Krypton by Elliot S. Magen. We have read about Superman doing some pretty super stuff. In the end, he saved Lois from some gun runners in an abandoned subway car station. There was a page break, and we will pick up from there. The young man puffed serenely on his bent pipe and tried hard to explain the concept so that his interviewer could understand. There was an illustration of my point on the radio news only this morning, Feldman Gordon said. Camera 3 dollied in for a close-up of the sociologist. I heard an interview with a young lady, Gordon said, who was allegedly saved by Superman from an assault only last night. Lois sat in the interviewer's chair. Superman turned up a lot of places last night. We reporters have noticed that there is a spate of unlikely reports for about 3 days every month or so. He's supposedly doing everything from fighting back an invasion of flying saucers over Mongolia to helping children with their long division, apparently at the same time. This happens to be a documented report. It was witnessed not only by the victim, but by a police officer. A young lady of about 20 claims she had nearly persuaded a mugger to leave her alone when Superman intervened out of nowhere to save her. Have you ever tried talking a mugger out of pursuing his vocation, Professor Gordon? I haven't had the opportunity, thank the stars, but neither did that young lady. Before she could get out of trouble herself, Superman saved her. What he has done, I believe, is ended despair. Clark Kent, watching the taping of Sunday Forum from the control booth with the director, needed no cues to keep a blank look on his face. It is my contention, and I expound upon this in my book Age of Dependence, Feldman Gordon continued, that Superman may be single-handedly bringing the social development of our entire human race to a grinding halt. How do you explain the strides over the past 20 years in science, space exploration, food production? These are not social phenomena. They are scientific and, to some extent, political developments. Let me give you a hypothetical case, Miss Lane. You, it is well known, have a sort of personal relationship with Superman. I take it he has actually saved your life more times than you can count. I'm perfectly capable of counting that high. It's just that I wasn't keeping score. It was a lame crack, but it helped Lois avoid blushing. Say you were somewhere really out of the way, Miss Lane, in Zaire, in the abandoned shaft of a diamond mine. The mine caved in. You had about an hour's supply of air. Absolutely no one knew where you were, and even if they did, there would be no chance of getting you out in time. What thought goes through your mind? I wish Superman would stop stalling. I've got a deadline to meet. Exactly. You don't make your peace with your God or your conscience. You don't cry. You don't go mad. You wait impatiently for Superman to save you. That possibility now exists. No one need despair anymore. Superman plays adopted father to the world, ready to bail anyone out of trouble, the way his father, Jor-El, bailed him out of a dying planet. The only evidence of significant social growth over the past 10 years I have found has been among those outside law-abiding society. Where would someone like Luthor be if Superman never came to Earth? Possibly, Gordon supposed, in a research laboratory somewhere discovering a cure for cancer, or maybe in a mental institution following a childhood spent in a succession of reform schools. Certainly there would have been no consuming ambition, no enemy impossible to overcome to teach him to aspire. Without Superman, Luthor might have grown up lonely. And what of the occasional outlandish creatures from outer space who happened to touch down in Metropolis to pick a fight with him every so often? If Superman had never come, would Earth people even be aware that there was life elsewhere in the universe? Maybe we knew too soon, before we were strong enough to face the interlocking cultures of the galaxy on equal terms. It was taken for granted in scientific and political circles that one day the people of Earth would compete for power and recognition among galactic society, as did any young civilization reaching into space. Would we really be equipped to do that when the time came? It was an idea that Clark Kent pondered occasionally. No one had ever expressed it publicly before. Maybe no one else had bothered to think of it before Feldman Gordon. Well, now it was in print, And that was just as well, Clark thought. It was. After the taping, Lois grinned at Clark in the booth, with the "we know something this guy doesn't know" grin. Clark wondered what it was that he and Lois both knew. The only concern of the director was the fact that the show ran an extra 30 seconds, and that would have to be edited out. Film and Gordon followed Clark down the hallway toward Clark's office. Gordon didn't call to Clark, so the newsman didn't turn around to see why he was being followed. The sociologist was a dark man in his early 30s, of medium height and build. He wore a mustache that was trimmed so as to look unkempt. As Clark walked, he perceived a slight change in the quality of Gordon's footsteps. A lightening somehow. As he reached his office, the voice came from behind Clark. "Kal-El, may I speak with you for a moment?" Clark turned around, and where Felman Gordon belonged, there stood one of the immortal Guardians. And that's the end of Chapter 17.